to the left. Pellegrini inside. Pizarro golazo. Pizarro golazo. Here's the goal scorer, Morgan. And he's done it again. Lewis Morgan with his second of the match. Higuain will have the goal. He's framed the top 90. It's a sensational first goal for Gonzalo Higuain.
What a day, what a day, what a day we had on Sunday, bud. It is so good that the MLS season has officially kicked off and we are no longer waiting for the football that we love.
Absolutely not. We showed up in pure numbers, Jay. That was like a small army that got together at Lockhart Stadium, you know. That was like any team that steps into our world is going to have to deal with that for years to come, and it just becomes this scary sight, like a monsoon ready to just divulge a young town.
It really does. I mean, I obviously didn't get the result we were hoping for, but nonetheless was very pleased to see how much further the team has come along. But welcome everyone to the Inter Miami podcast. I'm Jay Kington. I am not alongside per usual, but I am on the phone with Mr. Alex Papa George. So that would explain why he sounds kind of a little bit robotic. But we're in different cities right now. I'm home, and he is he's working remote from Key West, quote unquote, working remote. But glad to have you back here, man.
Love the new employment perk. This working remote through the week is pretty exciting. I gotta say, Jay, conch fritters and pina coladas, bud. Life does not get much better than that.
It does not. When I'm in the Keys, I'm eating conch fritters at least once a day. I wish you didn't have gout, because they have some really amazing shrimp fritters, which were featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives that we got last time we were down there at the Shrimp Shack, and it was phenomenal. But you did tell me you're going to take my recommendation and stop at the Fish House. Shout out the Fish House of Key Largo. Trying the fish Matacumbi, yellowtail Matacumbi, and I know what you like to eat. I know you like to eat very healthy, and you are going to love that dish, I am sure. But we're not here to talk about seafood dishes. We're here to talk about Inter Miami. I'm sure everyone's already aware of the Mateus Pellegrini situation and him being loaned out to Inter Miami CF. I'm sure everyone's aware of the Patrick Seagrist situation and him being loaned out to Indy 11, which is, I guess, technically a league above Pellegrini right now. And then, of course, the Blaise Matuidi situation. We are going to discuss these things in a bit more detail at the tail end of the show. But we wanted to just immediately jump right into our delayed home opener that we finally got to experience with 8,000 members of LaFamilia. The supporters group section was packed. It was rowdy. We were covered in beer and whatever other liquids were being thrown on us. That started at the tailgate. That started like 3 hours before the game, man. It was such a good time. And, it felt like we got robbed of that home opener last year, and we finally got it back. I don't know if you noticed this, but I noticed the next morning, and probably for good reason, because we were not necessarily on our best behavior at the game. We were just fully taking in that atmosphere and whatever was being handed to us and told to drink from the supporters groups. But did you notice on the flags the date was March 14th, 2020? They just kept like the same flags from last year and passed them out.
Jay, I'm going to be honest, man. There's a big disconnect, kind of from the game to Monday morning. So I must have missed that somewhere in my adventure in the stadium. But no, but that makes total sense, man. Hey, why spend more money when you don't have to?
Why
it was kind
money?
Of a yes, you did, sir. But yeah, man, you were right. I don't think we were even covered in beer in the game. It was like an hour before the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when we were jumping around with Vice City, Jay, how good did it feel to have tailgates back? That's something that is like an American tradition, and that is like why half of the people show up for sports in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So just to have that experience, COVID, kind of loosening up. Obviously, we had around 8,000 people in the stands, which is a lot. not as much as Alabama football, which I saw had 47,000 people in the stands in the spring game. But 8,000 people all in one area is definitely a big sporting event.
It was good. And the only thing I regret that I just realized of right now is we did not go meet back up with Marco and Leo from Rosa Negra Nacion to get the choripan.
Well, I was going to say.
To get the choripan.
Yeah. You know? I think the regret actually started before that with the tequila shot that Marco gave us.
Yeah, exactly. It was funny because Chloe was telling me that she spoke with Sherry, and she was like, "Man, Jay was in pretty rare form after that game," and she was like, "Yeah, that's same with Alex too."
Well, I resent that partially, but
we
that's
Ubered.
Why you got.
We were
I was
responsible.
Say, got an Uber. Yeah, we were responsible adults. You know, there was a time that I think Jay was doing snow angels in the grass, you know, over by the lawn. But we were adults. We kept it. We did not drink and drive, and I hope nobody else did. But no, it was a blast. You know, being around everybody. The energy was through the roof, and that's just kudos to everyone in LaFamilia. This was kudos to everyone at the stadium. You could really feel the excitement, the anticipation. I know. You know, we were talking to Uncle Ed and, you know, Peter Brown, you know, in the beginning of the game before even kickoff ends, you know, seeing David Beckham, you know, walk onto the field and the whole crowd just absolutely erupt. And then to hear that, you know, Mr. Tom Brady made a visit down from Tampa Bay, you know, it was Tampa exciting. Bay. It felt just like this was Florida back, man.
This was Florida back. We saw David Beckham. We saw Jorge Mas. We saw Don Garber. We did not see Tom Brady, but I saw that while I was rewatching the game in a much more focused state, I will say. But, I mean, just in through and through, just an amazing time. And you could just feel it building up, right? Like, everyone was just happy to tailgate, like you said, because we've been able to do that for what feels like 4 years now. So that was great. But then as it just got closer and closer to the game, it only got more and more intense. We honestly, like, kudos to us. We did a great job of stopping by every single supporters group and hanging out for a bit. You know, ran into Bruno Panizzi and, you know, spoke with it. Like, everyone that has really been involved with this is something that, or someone that we saw, which was great. I mean, it really is such a LaFamilia. You can't stress that term enough, you know?
Yeah, man. And you know, just being in the supporters section, you know, with everybody there and the energy. And, you know, we were talking about it at the game and we were like, you know, what kind of fan base is this similar to? And we were like, is this more like Oakland Raider Black Hole side of it? You know, where do we exactly fit? Because, you know, this is a reoccurring theme that Jay and myself have talked about, you know, for probably betterment of the year. But when we get that stadium filled up, that is going to be one of the most difficult arenas to play in the entire MLS. And, you know, again, we're talking about, you know, this, you know, arena and stadium in Fort Lauderdale that's going to hold 18,000 people. When we move down to Miami Freedom Park in a few years, just imagine the intensity that's going to bring. That's going to be basically twice the size.
It's going to be absolutely insane. And even, I think it was Taylor Twellman who commentated on the game on ABC/ESPN. He was saying that the 8,000 fans sound like 50,000. Like, everyone was very loud. Everyone was even a little aggressive, but it's all in good fun, man. And I'd be remiss if I did not correct myself. I said Bruno Panizzo. It's Franco Panizzo. Bruno is his relative. But yeah, just it was all around good seeing everybody. We had people from the FIFA group, Jay Segura and his son, come up and meet up with us, man. It was, what a day. I had so much fun. You know, we didn't get the result. We came out really strong. First half was excellent. Second half, I think biggest issue, ran into some fitness issues, right? You sub off Lewis Morgan for Federico pretty early into the second, and then not too long after that, but, you know, closer to the end of it at least, they take off Rodolfo and they take off Blaise Matuidi. And really, what do all three of those players have in common, man? They have a continuous drive. They're the Energizer Bunnies. You know, that is really the blood and the engine of the team. So that was a little strange to see. Obviously, conceding 3 goals in one half after going up, then bringing it level, then going up again. You could tell that I think everyone was getting just a little deflated there. And of course, I know that you're going to want to talk about Mr. McCarthy, who I have adamantly stuck up for. And
adamantly.
And bud, I feel like I'm got to eat my words a little bit here. There were some same kind of mental errors we were making last season.
Yeah. Listen, we're going to get into the McCarthy conversation. Don't you worry about that, Jay. But before we do, your point about, it seemed like some tired legs. And that's really what stood out to me on that final goal that the Galaxy put in, was just the lack of conditioning and effort to get back, and not just get back, but play, with concentration, with what's happening around. This is the last, with stoppage time, 10 minutes of the match in our first season opener, guys. Like we got to keep the pedal to the metal full slate. And, I'm sorry, bud, but I do not buy the conditioning side of this. This game was played in the middle of April in Fort Lauderdale. That is a very steamy, humid, and hot environment. And these guys came from Los Angeles. And I got to tell you, bud, there's a little bit more of an ocean breeze out west. I am from Southern California, and I got to tell you, the weather's a little bit different over there. So when I hear this conditioning side of it, does that fall back on coaching? Because I don't think that can fall back on weather, because if anything, I think LA Galaxy would be a little bit more stunned to step into South Florida than the home team.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I would say in defense of this, I mean, and that was Neville. He said that before the game, that the team's not to the fitness level they need to be. And this kind of goes back to what we've discussed on the past few episodes, is lack of preseason. You weren't getting that real game time minutes. Sure, you had the intra squad scrimmage. You could even argue that maybe some players were taking a little easier in that scrimmage, but this is something that we have to get a hold of, and also the mental errors. We saw the back line. They looked better than last year, but you could tell there were some communication issues, and that's, I think, mainly just to Jovan Jones and Kelvin Leerdam being pretty new. Nico and LGP have had a season under the belt, an off season under their belt, but Jovan Jones and Kelvin Leerdam are fairly new. So I'm hoping to see that iron out. But what I was very impressed about was our creation. I mean, we had 19 total shots, 8 on target. We were out there and looking like we were able to create chances with ease. But one thing I really loved, and we kind of hinted at this, was Robbie Robinson playing as a winger, not getting closed down as fast, a little bit more time to get comfortable in the game. And you saw shifty feet, and I was very impressed. He got, a pretty easy goal off Higuain's assist, but I like him in that new position. And I like Neville's commitment to make Robbie part of this team, because it wasn't happening with Alonso.
Spot on. And to be honest, Jay, it was nice to see someone contribute other than the man Lewis Morgan himself, right? And that was exciting to see, and that shows promise. And
you could argue Lewis had a bad game too.
Absolutely, you could certainly argue that. And obviously, not every match can be up to the stellar expectation that we do think of Lewis Morgan, but you're absolutely right. It was nice to see more creation on the offensive side. And, although, Higuain's goal was, more of a, penalty kick type of scenario, but it was nice to see him put the ball in the back of the net and get some confidence underneath himself. He just tied his season total in 2020 with 1 goal in the first game of the season. So, it's about the little things. And like Jay touched on a little bit ago, not having an off season, and preseason and these pre-matches really kind of hinders your development. And again, we talk about it a lot, but especially from an expansion club, type of point of view, those are very important reps that you don't have. So this was really our first game against, top professional talent. We played the Tampa Bay Rowdies. We played, Miami FC. I hate to bring up those rowdy games again, but I was going to say things could get worse. But that's the level of talent that we're playing. So we'll see how the matches go moving forward. Even though we have a few couple games ahead of us that are going to be tough.
We are. I mean, these first 3 games are going to be pretty darn tough. And the game we have after this, we're going up against the Supporter Shield winners in Philadelphia Union. So it's going to be pretty tough to say the least. But Pizarro looked very clean, very crisp with his decisions, with his movement throughout the field. You can see the improvement. Blaise was let loose. He was getting up there, joining the attack. He would come up out of the midfield to make tackles in high press situations. And then going back to that last goal, with the fitness, we had 6 defenders in the box, and no one was even looking at the runners coming from the midfield into the attack, which is right where Sasha Klestjan came from to get that goal. And McCarthy doesn't even dive. I get it's a post shot, like it's off the post, but I just want to see, a little more effort. And I guess let's go ahead and get this over with, this McCarthy conversation. I'll try and go first to protect myself from you a little bit here, but mental errors, man. The first one, you get nutmegged, right? I guess it's understandable. It happens fairly often. But that second goal, he should have got a firm hand to that and knocked it out. It's like he just gently rubbed the ball or gave the ball a nice little pet, like it's a house cat, right to Chicharito for an easy, basically open goal, just of where his positioning was. So we are going to have to get that under control. We think we know the remedy to that, although we're not going to have access to that until the summer transfer window.
Yeah, this has been a big topic throughout the offseason. I think it showed its ugly little face game 1, which isn't what you want, right? And, honestly, right now, my opinion on McCarthy, but right now, I think we got to roll with him. I think we got to give him a little bit of time. It's the first game of the season. And, realistically, over the offseason, we've had, we were ready for John to step in day 1 and be the goalkeeper, right? This didn't catch us by surprise by any means. But to your point of what Inter Miami did and go ahead and sign Dutch goalkeeper Nick Marsman, who'll be joining us in July, who will occupy an international roster spot, but his contract will go through 2023. So that does allow for a couple of years underneath the belt. And I think that is a sign of a goalkeeping competition.
And I think that's much needed, right? Because our goalkeepers are basically John McCarthy, brought up from Fort Lauderdale CF, Dylan Castanera, brought up from Fort Lauderdale CF, and then Drake Collender, which is what in his second year of professional football. So I think there needs to be more of that experienced and even better goalkeeper there to keep the drive up and really force a competition here. But sticking with the defensive scheme, I did like what I was seeing from Leerdam in Jones. They did seem to play well up the wings and trying to get into the attack and help out. But it was mainly just trying to stay a cohesive back four throughout that game. And you could see where there were the lapses. So we do have some work to do. But so far I like what I see. So, my faith in Phil Neville has been boosted by this performance, but he has to keep going.
Yes, Jovan Jones and Liram, those are new players on our club. And that goes back to the conversation of just not having enough repetitions against high-level quality talent. Those are both strong MLS players. They will be important pieces of the puzzle moving forward. But, what we saw was, I guess the lack of attention to detail that will continue to improve over the course of time. So, Jay, one last point about John, and I actually want to ask you a question is, it's not that John is a not good goalkeeper. I just think that that's your number two. And I don't think that he's your consistent game after game, goalkeeper who's going to lead you to the promised land. Now, that being said, nobody can discount what he did last year by stepping in and from Luis Robles and getting us into the playoffs and over the hump. But, it is a new year and times have changed. But, as we kind of move into the defense, I got to ask you, man, we laughed. We laughed pretty hard because it seemed like LGP just took off where he left off last year. I think it was within the first 3 minutes, picking up his yellow cards. It was like, dang, like I think we tweeted it out, right?
Was it even like, 3 minutes, dude?
Like clockwork.
I feel like it was in the first minute. And I was like, well,
it might have been.
I said that looks about right. And then I could hear some people just chuckling. But yeah, I mean, man, settle down, lads. Settle down. I think Gregory got one, or Gregory rather. I'm going to always say Gregory got one for arguing with the refs after another. I think it was Leardham's tackle. So it's just stuff like that. Keep a level head. Don't make the mental mistakes. The mental mistakes ate us alive last year. We have to find a way to remove that, and then find a way to finish the games off.
Absolutely, and one of the big pieces too of at least the back line, the defense, that I caught my eye, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, because we haven't talked about this, right? And in 2020, I think what we saw was a this cohesive group of Uyoya and Will Trapp, right? Those were two players that clearly couldn't be on the field at the same time together, because they were both more defensive-minded players that couldn't really offer that fluidity into the attack. Now, let's fast forward to 2021. Now I want to actually keep a spot out for LGP and Fagal and actually talk about, can both of these players play on the same team? They seem that they're obviously more of aggressive by nature. They're a lot more free-spirited, but we see our tactical side on our defense always kind of being in a disalignment. So my question is, though, although LGP and Fagal, we think highly of them, but together, is that the right duo in the middle of our back line?
Oh, I mean, that is a very valid question, and I honestly don't have an answer. LGP came late. I think his first game was the home opener against Orlando, which was our first win. I think it was week 6. Nico's been here for a while, but he was out for a little bit last year as well. I believe it was due to injury, if I can recall correctly. So maybe they need more time to develop, or maybe they're just both the just like you said, kind of uber aggressive defenders who have no issue sticking their leg out in front of you or putting you on the ground. Because I don't see a situation where LGP isn't yellow card accumulation suspended after, it will probably happen before week 6, honestly. Like, this dude loves picking up yellow cards, and it's going to be a problem. It is going to be a problem. So that's a very valid point, and that's something that I'm going to make sure that we keep an eye on throughout the year and see how this develops, and maybe that's kind of where we're identifying the issue with our back line.
We'll see. Time will tell, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but it was something that caught my eye when I was watching the game back, and I was just thinking about last year in comparison to this year. And, both of these players are outstanding, and, they're going to do well wherever they may go. LGT's career in the MLS has spoken for himself, and, Fagal being a little bit newer to the league is only poised for a solid career, but it's something that caught my eye, and it got me thinking a little bit, and something that we'll keep an eye on moving forward into this year. So, because we can't continue to go down and have all of these yellow cards continue to get allocated. It's just, to an extent, it's just a joke, and we can't have that, because it's going to continue to hurt us. And what good team out there has as many penalties as we do? I'd be hard pressed for you to name one.
Yeah, no, another very valid point. And just kind of going through these just match stats, I mean, anything here stick out to you? I mean, we're talking fouls. LA had 14. We had 9. We did have 2 yellow cards. They had no yellow cards. There were no red cards in the game. Coincidentally, there were no offsides in the game, which is actually pretty impressive from both sides, considering the frequency of that in the sport. 6 corner kicks for us, 3 for LA Galaxy, 6 saves for LA, and only 2 saves from Mr. McCarthy. And then this is the one that I think is very interesting. As far as possession goes, did not do a great game, or a great job, rather. We're looking at 34% possession to LA's 66 possession. But what is impressive within that, shorter side of the possession, we did have over 3 times as many chances, right? And little over 1.5 times as many shots on goal. So the fact that we are creating that many chances with that little possession does give me some reassurance that once this machine has been well oiled, well serviced, tires rotated, brakes swapped out, this could be a potentially, a Formula One, race car in this league once we get all that settled out.
There's no doubt that our team has the potential. And the idea is that, listen, we're going to play an entire year, right? This isn't a microcosm of one game. This isn't a microcosm of 1 month, our first 3 games, which is a little bit rough. This is a full year schedule. And, the word coming out of game 1 was just optimistic. I think optimism is around this year. I think that we looked out like light years better than we did last year. And I don't know if that was just because the intensity of the game and just riding off of the emotion of being there, which I can understand has a different element, but it felt like it was a tale of 2 halves in the game. Half one, we did our work. Half 2, it seems like our legs kind of lost us. And, obviously they put in 3 goals, but, this is the start of a season. And I got to say, I am a lot more optimistic about this year than last year, bud.
Definitely. I cannot agree with you more. As far as standings, we are currently sitting in 11th place in the East. This is primarily due to being in alphabetical order. So we're above the 2 New York teams as well as Toronto. Now, Philly, who we are playing next week, obviously a very tough team. Brendan Arison is no longer there. He is with RB Salzburg, but still pretty stacked roster. They actually drew last week. As honestly, the majority of the Eastern Conference drew last week. It looks like only Montreal and only DC United were the 2 teams out of the East to walk away with a win. So although losing on your opener on your first game is never good because you want to start the season well, we're actually, relatively speaking, not doing too bad because the vast majority only have 1 point up on us.
Yep. Game 1 in the book. It is what it is. It would have been great to get that W as our first, home match in front of the fans, but it just didn't happen. That's not our story. But, looking forward, we have a match on Saturday, which is pretty exciting. We don't have to wait, 8 months or so in between matches or 6 months, however that may be. We're basically at a weekly basis right now, people. So strap in and it's going to be a ride.
It is. And we will play Philly Union at 8 p.m. Saturday, 4/24. They drew it out, actually, which very exciting game. The way it was kind of being set up was the Columbus Crew versus Philadelphia Union for the opener. So we're talking about the MLS Cup champions and the MLS Supporters Shield winners, but scoreless in that. So maybe they come out and they're not creating as many chances. I think we played them quite well, but one mental mistake of that Kasper Shabelko counterattack, which he beautifully put in. But this is going to be a very good game. It's going to be another one of the early season tests. These first 3 are going to be difficult games for us. So we need to stay focused, continue working, continue getting our fitness up, and let's just keep moving forward. As Mr. Congo Man says, onwards and upwards, gents. Stay positive. We will keep it moving.
I love it.
Now,
who's also staying positive right now, Jay?
Who?
Blaise Matuidi.
Blaise Matuidi. Blaise. Oh, buddy, I guess we'll start there. So Blaise Matuidi, apparently, allegedly, everyone's saying it's allegedly.
It is 420. We got to talk about Blaise.
That is a absolutely excellent episode title name. We're gonna do that. We're using that. Yep, that's perfect. But yeah, so man, allegedly Inter Miami bought him a house. I don't know how David Beckham and Moss, if this is true. Everyone says, it hasn't been confirmed yet. If this is true, this is pretty significant. This is pretty ballsy, if you ask me. Kind of doesn't surprise me in the area of the country we live in. But I don't know how they thought this was not going to get caught. And once this investigation is finalized, it sounds like Don Garber, who's the commissioner of the MLS, has every intention to hit us with sanction. Now, Herculez Gomez, played in the MLS, commentates on the sport. He was saying that what would be fair would be a sanction on our DPs and only allow us 2 DPs for the following season, which would be tough. I mean, you got to take your pick out of the 3 there. I think we just have to kind of sit Blaise out since he's where this whole fiasco has started. Due to this strange structuring of his acquisition, and I don't know, they haven't given too much information. It's looking more and more grim, in contrary to what we thought of this was kind of, just a much ado about nothing. It seems like it's a much ado about something at this point.
Yeah, let's say Blaise's quote unquote house is not in Pompano or Hollandale. I bet this sucker is planted
Yeah.
like right in South Beach, Brickell Key, you name it. But no, Jay and I are forming a search committee. Where we're going to go track this thing down. If you have any, tips of where this location of the house is, feel free to email us at the intermiamipodcast@gmail.com. But
who snitched? Like, someone
it's
had
clearly
to have snitched.
There's no doubt in my mind it was a pissed off Orlando City fan.
Yeah, he's probably a realtor with like access to the MLS, not Major League Soccer, but like the realty MLS site. But yeah, I mean that's probably what it was. It was probably that last home defeat that made one of their fans salty, and we can't really do anything about it because our hands were definitely caught in the cookie jar. So stay tuned on that. But perfect way to segue into our next segment right now is, due to this situation, this caused the team to force Pellegrini to be loaned to Fort Lauderdale CF, which has got to be just a massive slap in the face. You're coming from the first division in Argentina, a soccer mad country. You're coming over to give the MLS a try, and the following year you're playing not for the USL, not for the NASL, but the USL League One. We're talking second, arguably third tier American soccer. We're not talking third tier like England or Spain we're talking third tier American soccer. These people, I mean, I don't know how much they make. I've got to imagine it's not much. And we're forcing him here to waste a year of his prime kind of peak, I guess. And what do you think? Do you think he stays? Do you think he dips out?
I think there's absolutely no chance he stays, nor do I blame him. I think this whole...
He doesn't just shred USL League One for like 50 goals in a season?
No, because like not at all. Like, and I mean, like worst case scenario, he doesn't even shred. Like, imagine that, right? Like, imagine coming over as the young DP for David Beckham's new franchise in Miami, get dropped, and then not even be able to compete. I mean, listen, I'm not saying that's going to be, I'm sure he's going to do just fine right there. But if I was him, I'd be pissed. I'd be furious. I would be through the damn roof.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine being in that situation. That has got to be very, very tough. And I forgot who it was. Might have been Franco, honestly. But someone said that he showed up to the weight room wearing an Estudiantes jersey. Like, just as like just disrespecting. He's disrespected, so he's going to be disrespectful back. I love it. I think that's pretty damn funny. But we'll keep an eye on it. Some sources say he's never going to play 1 minute of USL football, but we will see. We will see. There was one other move that happened last week. Patrick Seagrist loaned out to the Indy 11. He was drafted by New York Red Bulls in last year's MLS Super Draft 2020. So he's going to go into a more development role. He is better suited to be loaned out to a USL team because, he has not like he came with that high of a price tag. So that'll be interesting to see. Wish him the best. And then at some point, I expect us to either recall him or trade him. But that's basically the news that we wanted everyone to catch up on. We are going to just a few seconds bring on Than Harrington to discuss the Fort Lauderdale CF victory over Tormenta in Georgia, which is the first win for the USL club. So I guess without further ado, let's bring in Than, bud. We're back with Than Harrington. What's up, Than? How you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Good to be here. Glad to be back.
Excellent. Well, before we get into that home opener and your thoughts on that, there was an FTL game, a Fort Lauderdale CF game that did go down against Tormenta. So we want to, update all the fans on that game and what your thoughts were on that.
All right, yeah. So Fort Lauderdale took on Georgia Tormenta at Eric Russell Athletic Park down in Georgia. It was pretty well dominated by our boys from the start. Honestly, if you go check out the USL's website, they might as well have just named it Fort Lauderdale Game 2 Highlights, because Tormenta did not show up on highlight tape at all. With that being said, we did end up pulling out a 1-0 victory. We had a lot of good opportunities. Play of the game was started off by George Acosta on a swift counterattack following a Tormenta free kick. He passed it up to Drew Harden, who was one-on-one with the Tormenta goalkeeper. I thought he was going to pull the trigger on it. And last second, he looks and finds Sean Hundal, who slots it home away. It was Harden's first assist of the season and his first assist as a professional, as well as Sean Hundal's first goal for Fort Lauderdale. After that, it was pretty well, documented for Fort Lauderdale. They were gonna win the game. They did not hold a lot of possession. They were only around 39%, with Tormenta around 61. The thing was that when Fort Lauderdale had the ball, it was quick counterattacks down towards goal, and Tormenta really wasn't able to get back in time. We just couldn't capitalize on a few big chances. But all in all, it was a good performance by the team. I was high on Zulaga as goalkeeper before the season started, but Zamudio's really winning me over with his performances. A few shaky moments from our back line that he really stepped out and saved and was kind of beyond his years, in my opinion. So I'm really hoping to continue to see that from him. It was noticeable, though, the difference between having Edison Azcona and not. While Lou Young and Noah Allen were rampaging up and down the first game, not having Azcona as a playmaker on the field was definitely detrimental to what Fort Lauderdale was trying to do, even though they came out with a win.
Azcona definitely a big piece of the puzzle for Fort Lauderdale. And Dan, I gotta ask, what was the big difference to take home the W? This was our first W of the season, which is obviously a big moment here. What was kind of the glaring, change in the inner squad to help us get that result?
It was a lot of unselfish play this game. A lot of quick look for the passes, a lot of, I hate to say it, but it was almost like back to basics. Get the ball, trap it, turn, look, find the open man, run to space. And as I said, they were able to do that and then initiate the counter and be off to the races. Again, would have liked to see more finishes, would have liked to see more goals. The boys deserved more goals, but it was nice to see that their counterattack was sharp as a knife. It looked beautiful.
Awesome.
From what I was able to, or go ahead, Alex.
No, go ahead, dude.
From the bit that I was able to watch, because it also was MLS opening weekend, so I was going back and forth, but I did see glimpses of what appeared to be a pretty another really good game from Noah Allen. That kid is just continuing to really impress me.
Yeah, absolutely. He played a heck of a game. He had a monster free kick that was, I'd say maybe a foot just outside. I jumped off my couch because I thought it was going in. But I'm really excited to continue to see him and, both Harden boys. Shout out to Drew and Ethan. They were balling out there, and you can tell they enjoyed themselves playing together on the same pitch, which is not an opportunity, family members get to share often. So, shout out to them. But, we just have a lot of exciting pieces on the squad right now. And I know we're only sitting at 1-1, but if they can just find that momentum and bottle it up and use it sparingly throughout the season, could be a good year for them.
Hey, well, I think the senior club will be looking forward to a 1-1 record after this next match against Philly there, bud. But it looks like through the stats here, it looks like possession was down, 38 to 62%. What would you say moving forward would best need be correcting still? Is there kind of a glaring part in the squad right now that you would say, hey, this area needs a bit more improvement?
Yeah, and actually, I hate to admit it, but my 6-year-old called it out. There was a lot of balls that they were just immediately, especially in the second half. Let's say a long kick would come in, and they were trying to do the extra flare kick, or they were trying to make a move without really having the possession to make the move. Settle down, take a second, evaluate, and find the open space. 9 times out of 10 in those moves, they would have been on the breakaway or had 3-on-2 or 2-on-1 and been in on goal. But because they were trying to move too quick instead of thinking about the game, that's what cost them, which dropped their possession dramatically. If they were able to tweak that, I could have seen it being a 50-50 game.
Very fair. Very fair. Well, we are 1-1, like you did just say, and it looks like our next match is this coming Saturday at 8:30 against North Texas. And Dan, you've been, I know, doing a lot of recaps about this last game against Tormenta. But looking forward, have you done any scouting yet on North Texas? Is there any players to keep an eye out or anything?
Not at this current moment, only because I do believe North Texas is yet to sit and play a game. I think they're sitting at 0-0 for the season. And it's kind of too early for me to give a review of them because I know they have had a lot of pieces going in, going out, as the rest of the USL has. So we'll be walking into this unknown, but I do believe with some of the pieces they've had leave the club over the off season, we should be okay. I'll go out on a limb and say I don't expect anything less than a draw. We should come out either 1-1-1 or 2-0-1, in my opinion.
Very good. And
have
there been any new players who you think over this last game against Tormenta who might have the ability or capacity to fill Ascona's shoes as he is now with Inter Miami?
Well, I mean, I think we hit the nail on the head. I mean, Allen's been on fire, and that's probably selling it too short. When he gets moving, get out of the way. Because he is going to find that space, he is going to get that pass created, and then he turns on the afterburners and just goes up that left wing. If him and Young can continue to do that day in and day out, they are going to torment, no pun intended, they're going to torment the opponent's defenses. And I really believe that they can continue to build up, and maybe we'll see him on the first team sooner rather than later.
Excellent.
All right. We heard it here first. You heard it here first. But Sam, there was a match that did happen. You might have heard it, and probably heard LaFamilia all the way up there in the Northeast there. But what was your thoughts on our first opener against the LA Galaxy? Really curious to hear your thoughts on it, bud.
Yeah, so it was like I was spending a day over at Hershey Park, not too far from me. It was a roller coaster ride of emotions. I can't imagine what it was like for you guys in the stands.
Shaded in and out.
Yeah, I can imagine. What I would say is that we started off strong. We definitely should have finished our chances a lot better than what we did. I mean, anytime you're sitting there with 8 on goal with 19 total shots taken, it's not going to bode well, especially for a player like Chicharito on the other side, who it was really hard for me not to cheer for with his past, but I kept it quiet. The thing for me that really stood out were two. I know one we might battle on. John McCarthy looked shaky. The second goal Chicharito scored when John McCarthy was diving the wrong way. I kind of want to know what was going on with him in that moment. I don't know if maybe he was thinking it was going to take a deflection or what it was going to do, but it seemed like he just had already committed to diving to his right, and Chicharito had that wide open goal to score in. Second point for me would be we got to make sure we're subbing in the right players, almost like a like for like. Lewis Morgan for Federico really had me scratching my head, especially since then we moved Rodolfo Pizarro out of the spot he was dominating all game in. I don't know. I don't understand it. I won't sit here and tell you that I play FIFA, but I'm not an expert coach, but I don't know if I would make that move. We had other options. I mean, bring in Escoda, bring in Carranza. I mean, I don't know. Somebody with a little bit more pace. Nothing against Federico, but he's not going to replicate the same pace that Lewis has.
Carranza sighting. You don't hear too many of those around here nowadays, which we should hear his name. That's a good point, dude. Yeah, I was blown away to see Lewis Morgan get pulled out of the game early. Jay, what do you think on that?
I mean, yeah, who would have thunk, right? Lewis being one of our best players, and he typically plays all 90 minutes. So it was a big shocker. Federico is definitely slower, but he did have a legit shot of drawing the game out, but was just wide left a little bit. But I couldn't agree more with everything you guys are saying. Why not bring in, especially in that type of heat and exhaustion where those last 30 minutes are going to be very, very crucial and very hard to play? Why not bring in some of your younger guns and let them run wild?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's no better time at that point than to get them game experience in that exact moment. And I won't sit here and say I know what I'm doing, but to me, it seems like you'd want to have someone with a little more pace. When we're chasing the game, when LA Galaxy made a fantastic substitution, which forced the pace back on LGP and Figal, and unfortunately they showed they weren't up to the task against that substitution. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate. I mean, especially in the second half, not just were we not as well conditioned as the LA Galaxy, but tactically we got outcoached.
And that's being nice about it. We were outclassed in the second half. I don't know. I mean, welcome to the MLS, Mr. Neville. That's all I can say. I mean, I knew he didn't think it was a cakewalk, but I mean, this just proved that he's going to have to go back to the drawing board and see what's going on. The one thing he'll be able to fall back on is the fact that we didn't have that preseason that we hoped we would have. He can blame fitness. He can blame lack of experience. He can do all that. But eventually, the passionate fans of Miami are going to expect better, especially with this game coming up against Philly.
Cannot agree more. Well, there will be much more of this in the future. All things Inter Miami, all things Fort Lauderdale CF in the Academy. Also, be sure to check out Pink Smoke. Dan's doing a great job at running that and giving quality content, so check it out. But, my man, as always, it is a pleasure to have you on this pod and on this team.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And if any of you guys are going to be out in Philly for the match, hit me up. I should be out there with my son, so we'll have a good old time and cheer on the boys to a victory.
I would love to, but I will be here watching my son solo dolo for a week, just bacheloring up with us two boys and our dog, who's also a boy.
I will be drowning my sorrows in Key West in a fishbowl, so I'll have to miss that.
That sounds terrible. Sounds like a terrible time. I wish I was in your shoes. Oh no!
I hope you get a gout attack.
Hey, you don't wish that on your worst enemies. Stan, well, thanks for swinging by, dude. We'll catch up with you soon. And like always, vamos Miami, baby.
All right, vamos Miami. We'll talk later.
Vamos Miami. Well, at least one of the organization's teams is on a winning streak right now, so that's good. Shout out to Than for his continued coverage of the Fort Lauderdale CF team, USL League One, as well as the academies. Really do appreciate that. Want to keep everyone as up to date as possible. As far as news, man, there is no more news. We don't have anything really left to say. Wait's a lot less than it was for the first game. I'll tell you what. How many days are we at now? 5 days, 6 days, something like that. So just stay tuned. This game's going to be a blast. It's an away game, so I'm sure there's going to be watch parties all around. Check out the Facebook groups, find those. But if you don't already, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Inter Miami Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at InterMIA Podcast. Send us an old-fashioned email. We haven't said that in many episodes. InterMiamiPodcast at Gmail or Jay and Alex at InterMiamiPodcast.com. Whatever you want to do, doesn't matter. Just love this team. And as always, vamos, Miami.
Vamos, Miami, Jay. I'm going to go get me another pina colada, bud.
Enjoy it, buddy. Enjoy it.